Most photographers own more lenses than they use, not because they plan to, because the lens industry is exceptionally good at convincing photographers that the next focal length is the one they are missing, that the reason the portraits are not quite right is the aperture, that the reason the landscapes are flat is the angle of view. The lens collection grows. The photography does not necessarily improve with it. 3 lenses cover 95% of everything most photographers actually shoot. This video names them, explains why, and makes the case for stopping there, or at least starting there and staying honest about whether anything else is genuinely necessary. But first, the lenses most photographers buy that they do not need. The ultra-wide angle lens. At 14 to 24 millimeters, ultra-wide lenses produce dramatic images in the right hands. They are also one of the most commonly purchased lenses that photographers use significantly less than they expected. The problem is not optical quality. Modern ultra-wide lenses from Sigma, Tamron, and the major manufacturers are technically impressive. The problem is that ultra-wide photography requires a specific compositional approach that most photographers have not yet developed when they buy the lens. Without strong foreground interest, an ultra-wide shot produces an image that feels empty rather than expansive. The sky is enormous. The main subject is tiny, and the distortion at the edges, while manageable, requires careful management of where lines and shapes fall in the frame. Photographers who buy ultra-wide lenses for travel, landscape, or architecture frequently find themselves reaching for a standard zoom within 6 months because the ultra-wide demands more compositional work than the images they wanted to make required. The macro lens. Macro photography is genuinely compelling. The ability to reproduce a subject at life size or larger, revealing detail that the naked eye cannot see, produces images that are immediately striking. It is also a very specific discipline that most photographers do not practice consistently enough to justify a dedicated lens. A good macro lens costs between $300 and $800, depending on the system. It performs one function exceptionally well. For occasional close-up work, many standard zoom lenses provide enough close focus capability to produce results that most photographers find satisfying. The dedicated macro lens earns its place when macro work is a regular part of the practice, not an occasional experiment. The 85mm prime. This will surprise some photographers. It is one of the most universally praised portrait focal lengths in photography. The compression it produces, the background separation at wide apertures, and the flattering perspective on facial features are all real and genuinely beautiful. The reason it belongs on this list is not that it produces bad images. It is that most photographers who own both a 50mm prime and an 85mm prime regularly reach for one and leave the other in the bag. The 85mm and the 50mm cover different distances to the same subject. They produce different compression. They are genuinely different lenses. But in practice, for photographers who are not shooting studio portraits at consistent working distances, having both creates a choice that more often leads to confusion about which lens to pick than to better photographs. Pick one. Learn it. The images will be better for the depth of knowledge than they would be from the optically perfect choice between 2 similar focal lengths. Now, the 3 lenses worth owning. Lens 1, the 24 to 70mm f2.8 zoom. This is the lens that professional photographers reach for first, because it covers the range where most photographs are made. At 24mm, it is wide enough for interior spaces, group shots, and environmental portraits. At 70mm, it delivers flattering compression for individual portraits and the ability to isolate a subject from a busy background. At f2.8 across the zoom range, rather than a 5.6 at either end, it handles low-light situations that kit lenses cannot. The main argument against it is price. The Sony 24-70mm G Master, the Canon RF 24-70mm L, and the Nikon Z 24-70mm S all cost between $1,200 and $2,500, depending on the system. That is a significant investment. The counter-argument is Sigma and Tamron. According to F-Stoppers, reporting in 2026, Sigma's 24-70mm f2.8 delivers 95% of the optical performance of the first-party alternatives at around half the price. The Tamron equivalent is similarly capable and similarly priced. For Sony E-mount shooters specifically, the third-party market for this focal range is exceptionally strong. A 24-70mm f2.8 is not an affordable lens. It is, however, a lens that replaces several other lenses, and for photographers who buy it and stop there, it is almost always cheaper than the collection of zooms and primes it consolidates. Lens 2, the 50mm f1.8 prime, the cheapest genuinely excellent lens available for almost every camera system. At around $125 to $250, depending on the brand, the 50mm f1.8 delivers image quality that outperforms zoom lenses at the same focal length, including zoom lenses that cost significantly more. It produces background separation that the kit lens cannot replicate. It performs in low light that stops a kit lens entirely. According to Digital Camera World 2026 Prime versus Zoom analysis, the 50mm focal length creates a perspective that closely matches human vision. Photographs taken at 50mm feel natural rather than distorted or compressed. Subjects look like themselves rather than exaggerated versions of themselves. The 50mm f1.8 is also the lens that teaches photography most efficiently. Because it cannot zoom, it forces decisions about composition that zoom lenses make easy to defer. The question is not which focal length to zoom to, it is where to stand, how close to get, and how the relationship between foreground and background changes as position changes. More photographs that changed how photography was practiced were made at or near 50mm than at any other focal length. That is not coincidence. Canon RF 50mm f1.8 STM, priced around $250. Nikon Z 50mm of 1.8S, priced around $280. Sony FE 50mm f1.8, priced around $180. All of them are among the best value purchases in each respective system. Lens 3, the 70 to 200mm f2.8 zoom. This is the lens you use for everything the first two lenses cannot reach. At 70 to 200mm, this lens covers the distance where photographing people becomes flattering rather than confrontational, where wildlife becomes approachable, where sport becomes possible, and where portraits compress backgrounds into smooth bands of color. The 70 to 200mm f2.8 is the lens working photographers keep the longest. According to a wedding photographer quoted in a 2026 buying guide, the 70 to 200 is essential for ceremonies. The ability to keep distance while getting close shots of expressions and moments is something no other lens in the bag provides. For travel photographers, it brings distant architecture close without requiring access. For portrait photographers, it creates background separation and compression that makes subjects appear more three-dimensional against the scene behind them. For anyone photographing children or animals, it provides the working distance that prevents the subject from reacting to the camera. First-party 70 to 200mm lenses are expensive. The Sony G Master version costs around $2,800. Tamron 70 to 180mm f2.8 for Sony costs around $750 and consistently appears in reviews as delivering the vast majority of the optical performance for less than a third of the price. For Canon RF and Nikon Z shooters, Sigma has expanded its reach into these systems, and the options are improving. One caveat: the 70 to 200mm f2.8 is a large, heavy lens. Photographers who need the reach but want something more portable should consider the f4 version, smaller, lighter, and available for less money, with the trade-off being 2 stops, less light. 3 lenses, 2 zooms, and 1 prime, a 24 to 70mm lens that covers the range where most photographs are made, a 50mm lens that teaches photography and produces images that outperform its price, and a 70 to 200mm lens for anything that requires distance, compression, or reach. Between them, these 3 lenses cover portrait photography, travel photography, event photography, street photography, landscape photography, and the kind of everyday shooting that makes up most of what most photographers actually create. The question every lens purchase deserves before it happens is simple. What does this lens let me do that my existing lenses cannot? If the answer is specific, the lens earns its place. If the answer is vague, for example, better quality, more options, or a different look, the money is almost always better spent on time shooting with what you already have. The lens collection grows. The photography does not necessarily grow with it.